here! I'm walking here!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another mini box office pulp. It's all the Madness Moxie and movies, but roughly only 3 days of your life. So it's a step up from the regular. Yeah, it's a rough estimation. Anyways, today we're here to discuss The Man of Steel.
You're the answer, Clark.
Can I just keep pretending I'm your son?
You are my son. But somewhere out there you have another father. And he sent you here for a reason. And even if it takes the rest of your life, you owe it to yourself to find out what that reason is.
Rated PG-13. Experience it in IMAX 3D. Starts June 14th.
Joining me today, MB. Say hello.
Hello.
Good job. And James Lewis.
I will co-host!
And he will. And I'll be your host, Flexo.
Hey.
So, how about that, Soups?
Don't do an impression of yourself.
It's kind of an Inception dealy. Like, it goes multiple layers thick. But we're not here to talk about Inception. We're here to talk about The Man of Steel.
The Man of Steel.
I was going to add some, like, thunder or something in the background when I say it.
I just like how so incredibly dramatic that title is.
I felt like an idiot at the box office. I'm like, can I get a ticket to sue The Man of Steel? Because I didn't want the ticket holder to get confused.
Is that kind of a weird trend ever since The Dark Knight? It's like, you almost question if anyone's going to see the movie based off of the fact that nobody knows what it's supposed to be about.
I think WB did a really good job attaching Man of Steel to Superman. Like, everyone kind of got that the two were linked.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Fantastic Four, the world's greatest comic book movie.
They have a movie called Incredible. It's about the Hulk. But as far as the movie itself goes, like, do you want to, like, you're the guiding force behind this show.
Oh, jeez, don't put that much pressure on me. All right.
There are puppets in your playhouse, Flexo.
Flexo L.
All right, so I guess, yeah, that's a good place to start, actually. What are our general thoughts on it? Did it live up to the hype? Because we've been waiting for a big Superman movie for years now. Some longer than others, depending on how you feel about Superman Returns.
It's kind of weird that you mentioned that, because I think I was talking to someone the other day. I don't know if it was one of you, but it feels like this movie has been coming out for, like, 10 years.
Yeah, since Superman Returns was out of the theaters, it felt like we were waiting for this movie. Not even necessarily as a knock to Superman Returns. It just it felt like it was coming.
Yeah, and not even, like, I didn't really even associate it with Superman Returns in as much as it feels like forever ago that they finally just said, okay, we're just going to have a Christopher Nolan produced Superman movie, and it's going to be directed by Zack Snyder, and then, like, everything just slowly came together out of a project that no one really expected to gain any sort of traction, like, anytime soon. Like, no one really thought Superman would see the theaters again after Superman Returns, at least for a good 10 years.
And
I still can't believe I saw this movie.
with Green Lantern, I feel like everyone was in shell shock. Like, no, there's not going to be any more. It's all done.
Yeah.
It's not like, Batman. It's not happening.
And there was so much writing on this movie, too. Like, of course, the biggest thing with it is that for a long time now, Warner Brothers and people associated with Warner Brothers, and even, like, David Goyer, have been saying, you know, if this movie takes off and does well, it'll more than likely lead to a DC cinematic universe. So it wasn't so much that this movie, like, we wanted it to be successful. It kind of had to be in order for, like, us to ever see, like, a Flash movie or a Wonder Woman movie.
I don't remember ever needing a movie to be good.
Yeah.
Like, not just wanting it, needing it. Like, I had things writing on this movie being good.
Yeah,
He's talking about all the money he bet on it. Just thousands of dollars.
He was at a racetrack for some reason. Like, he named a horse Man of Steel.
Come on, Jor-El needs a new pair of shoes.
But, As far as what I thought about the movie itself, you know what? It had a couple flaws, but I liked it. I really liked it, actually. I thought it was a good representation of the Superman I grew up with, which is the post-crisis incarnation. It was kind of questionable as to whether or not they would pull that off, but I felt that they did, and it was definitely not the Christopher Reeve Superman. It was, steadfastly the modern Superman, and I appreciated that about it, so I really liked the movie.
All right, so MB gives it a B- out of 5. Hero, what were your thoughts?
I think out of the three of us, I think I might have ended up enjoying it the most.
You don't even know how I feel, man. Don't tread on my feelings.
Don't tread on.
I would never tread on you, Flexo. You know that.
That's the rule, actually. If you do, I kick you off the podcast. I'm kind of brutal that way, but the rules are rules.
Stay tuned, folks. Who knows who will be hosting whenever we're all said and done.
It's like a game show.
It's like the weakest link. We just fall through a trapdoor. Up until the last 10 minutes of the movie, which we'll get into later, I was willing to put it shoulder to shoulder with the Avengers, like 10 out of 10.
Huh.
Like, I really enjoyed this movie, and after the end of the third act, that did diminish my feelings for it a lot, but I'm still consider it a very good movie. Like, easily one of the best superhero movies.
Now, for your thoughts, your silence after that kind of was menacing.
Excellent.
With with frogs in the background.
My whole opinion. I just have no opinion. I'm the Switzerland of opinions here.
I haven't even seen the movie.
I don't believe in Superman. No, actually, I went into the movie. I was kind of nervous about it because Zack Snyder has done some good movies and some not so great movies, and I wasn't sure what he's going to bring to the table. But by the end of the film, I was convinced that he'd actually pulled it off and he made a Superman movie I actually want to own on Blu-ray. So I'm excited for the sequel. I think the sequel will hopefully fix some of the errors that we saw in this first one and make a much stronger film. But the first entry here is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I would say that as far as your opinion stacking up to mine, it's probably pretty equal in just that it feels like there is a much better movie coming, but I still enjoyed what was there.
Yeah, I think it kind of falls into the same traps as Batman Begins, where it has all the origin and introductory kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So once it has those out of the way, you can hopefully go on to something like The Dark Knight, where you've got a much better product.
Well, that was actually like a feeling I had during the end, where it's like, throughout the movie it felt more and more like it was building up to what we knew was Superman, and then by the end when he's in the Daily Planet, okay, spoilers.
Spoilers.
Man of Steel dies.
Spoilers.
No, I refuse to believe that. At the end when he's in the Daily Planet and he's got the glasses on and he and Lois have that exchange, it's like I had this feeling that, okay, up until now, they were just building to Superman. Now it's 100% Superman.
That's their bat signal scene.
Yeah, it was kind of like the end of X-Men First Class, like Magneto stepping into the cell.
Yeah. Did anyone think the structure of the film itself was kind of funky? Like, this movie to me felt like it could have been an entire trilogy by itself. If anyone was crazy enough to make a Jor-El movie without Superman in it.
That'd be amazing.
I don't necessarily know if I agree with the fact that it could be like its own trilogy, but I think the structure was a little weird. Like,
I'm talking about like the size of the final battle was so large in scope compared to a lot of other things we've seen that it feels like it could be like the head of a trilogy. Like that's where everything comes into that big final battle.
And the final battle was a little longer than it needed to be. I mean, there was a moment whenever, after they bring the spaceships down and Zod tears off his armor and begins to fight Superman, where I was like, oh, this is still going?
The only reason I had that feeling was because I desperately had to urinate during the third act, so it was tense for so many other reasons.
I had that same experience during The Return of the King. Like the third ending, I was just like, oh no, come on.
Hey, you got nothing on me. I had to pee 10 minutes into Return of the King.
I think by the time that Zod was doing kind of his, I don't know how to describe it, like it's kind of a Yoshi hop up a building.
Yeah, it's like if a gorilla could climb buildings with super strength.
Yeah. Like by the time he did that, I felt like, okay, we could wrap it up at this point because they've done like most of the fighting that they need to for the spectacle already by that point. Like they were flying around Metropolis, which by the way was amazing. I felt that was really well done. The action in this movie was really well done in general, I thought. People will disagree about, the actual outcome of all of it and whether or not that was necessary, but I thought...
We're talking about neck snaps here, people. Let's not beat around the bush. Zod's snap neck.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
But I meant...
All of Michael Shannon.
I more so meant, like, the destruction of the city, which a lot of people have been, harshing on the level of destruction and the level of just inattentiveness to that part of it, which on one level I don't really get, because for me, Superman, like, it seemed like Superman was handled in a very interesting way in that during the final fight, he was essentially like doing everything he could to stop the World Engine. And
yeah.
like it was like no second was spared with him. So I thought that complaint was kind of strange.
Well, I guess some people are complaining about the fact that if you look at it, only one half of the engine has to be destroyed to stop it from working. So he could have just immediately gone to the one in Metropolis and destroyed that, and then tried to get the Kryptonians out of the city. I don't know. That was some of the stuff I heard. I think the bigger end of the issue is that people want and don't want this to be the Donner Superman. Like, they want this to be the kind of Superman who will go above and beyond rescuing people and kittens and trees and not have any darkness to him at all.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to see that movie because we saw Superman Returns and it didn't do great. So
yeah,
I don't know what people want. It's like they want to hold on to this idea of Superman, but they don't want to actually see that Superman.
Well, it's kind of counterintuitive to the comics, where it's like sometimes he's portrayed that way. He's portrayed in a way that's very much almost... It's definitely not like a parody or anything, but it's almost like countercopying Donner's version of the movie with Christopher Reeve, and where he's like the constant nice guy. And then there's the post-crisis version, which is very much what I felt this version was capturing, in that he's got a little bit of an edge to him, but not to the point where he's like a dark character. Like, I didn't feel like Superman was made to be like a dark character in this.
I feel like for the most part he was just Superman. Yeah. Superman as we know him, not necessarily Superman as popular culture remembers him.
And
I think was a problem a lot of people had.
This is Superman coming into his own as well, because during the movie he throws his first punch, really. So he's still kind of learning what power he has and how to express himself, how to be Superman, if he wants to even be Superman or not. So, he's still like a lump of clay here. We don't really know what he's going to end up like by the last film in the series.
Yeah, actually more than even Batman Begins really explored. Like, you get to see the hero formulating almost. Like, you get to see him as not quite there yet. Like in Batman Begins, you got the scene of him in the ski mask and running around in the suit, but once he got like the full bat suit, he was pretty much Batman from there, as we know him. But with Superman, it's like once he put on the suit, he was still a rookie.
And oh yeah.
Like he only flew for the first time after he put on the suit, which I thought was a nice touch.
One thing I don't quite understand is people saying that, well, Superman takes himself too seriously in this movie. To which I'm like, well, watch an episode of Superman in the animated series. Superman takes himself pretty seriously most of the time.
And that was another thing that I didn't get either, was that people were complaining that the movie itself was too serious, and it's like, okay, nobody's ever heard of drama? Like,
well, even in the theater, though, there were a lot of people who were laughing at little things here and there. Yeah. It wasn't completely void of comic relief. And, I don't know. I think maybe some of the moments get swallowed up because there's so much happening, or there's not enough time to breathe. Like, there's one moment where Superman gets punched through a building by Zod, and he slams into one of those signs that says, 246 days since an accident. And when Superman smashes into it, the numbers all fall off. But it happens so fast, you can't really tell it's there, so the joke kind of gets ruined.
I actually kind of had to be told about that afterwards, because I didn't notice it in the theater. Like,
yeah, I think there are moments like that where they just head by so fast, or they're in a dramatic moment where you don't understand that they're actually supposed to be
And that actually, like,
moments of levity.
That actually made me, like, kind of question, like, why such a hubbub about the Wayne Enterprises logo on the side of that satellite, because you barely see it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a blink and you'll miss it type thing.
I noticed that. I didn't notice the LexCorp stuff.
I noticed the LexCorp stuff because there's that tanker that went directly towards camera at one point.
Oh, okay,
yeah. That was pretty obvious.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't notice, like, any buildings, so I think there might have been more in there that I missed, but yeah, a lot of it, like, happened so fast, because I will admit, like, sometimes in the movie, the editing's a little shoddy for my taste.
I don't mind the editing so much. It was the filming style. Like, the shaky cam style never works for me on a giant screen or in 3D. If you mix those two things, it's just kind of a mess for me. So I'm sure it'll look great on a TV, but in theaters itself is kind of frustrating to watch.
The only time that really bugged me was in the opening Krypton scenes where they go immediately to the handheld camera. I thought that was a bit much, but...
No, actually, oddly enough, none of that bothered me. It was just more the structure of the movie, like the transitions, really, that kind of...
There's so much that happens on Krypton in the first couple of minutes. It's amazing how much they just run through.
Yeah. Which, Krypton itself was... Like, that's another point to make, in that Krypton is shown way more in this than I think I've ever seen in anything Superman-related. Like,
Krypton scenes are everything Avatar should have been.
I was gonna say, I really appreciate how batshit crazy they went for all the Krypton stuff. Like, that was great.
like that was some crazy science fiction going on. Like, Krypton...
And you did not see that coming.
Like, Krypton being that far advanced is something you don't expect. Even seeing something like a Crystal World in the Donner films, or like the almost Blade Runner-esque Krypton of the Superman the Animated Series. Like,
you're not used to Krypton actually feeling like a real world.
Yeah, not only a real world, but its own world. Like devoid of our rules and our limitations, almost.
That's another thing I thought Snyder really did do right, was the set and costume design for Krypton and for Zod and his men.
Yeah.
Like, they do a really good job of making that look alien, but not in a cliched way.
Yeah. Even the creature design, like the dragonfly dragon mount, that thing was pretty cool. It was reminiscent maybe of Avatar, but I don't know, I thought it was its own kind of cool, unique thing.
I'm sorry, but anyone who complains about the dragon is a moron. Because that was completely cool.
I was reading a review by a popular comic book writer where
was it
his
comic
opening
book guy?
lines were possibly. Or his opening lines were, "The second Jor-El called for his dragonfly flying monster horse thing, like it was fucking the Lone Ranger, I knew we were in trouble." It's like, but that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. I would definitely pay to see more of that in the movie.
Yeah. There are genuinely some complaints about this movie that I truly do not get where they're coming from at all.
Well, I think people forget, Superman is actually a pretty fucking weird property.
Yeah, it's...
Watch the animated series. There's Lobo in there, there's Bizarro, there's all sorts of... Kandor, there's all sorts of weird stuff in the comics for Superman. It's much more sci-fi than people give it credit for.
Like, in the comics, in the comics, he has a white dog with his powers wearing a cape.
Yeah, Krypto. Why not?
I mean...
That's what I was thinking during the Krypton scenes. Like, finally we're seeing a Superman movie that has science fiction Superman shit in it.
Yeah, not just like the Crystal World from Donner films, even though like that works great for that movie, and I love that. But this one takes it into such a far direction that I really had to give it credit. Like, it felt like you were getting emotional investment into what was happening on Krypton before you even met Clark.
Michael Shannon firing laser guns.
Yeah, that was awesome.
One thing I was thinking about earlier was that this is the first time we've seen a Superman movie that actually uses... where the science fiction is actually part of the movie and not just a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Or an explanation for why things are there.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like a science fiction movie that has Superman in it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's...
They even included the Phantom Zone.
I was not expecting that. I lost my shit whenever Michael Shannon said, "He imprisoned us in the Phantom Zone.
They didn't even try and hide it, which was the amazing thing. It was like, what? Really? You're going to say Phantom Zone in your $200 million motion picture? Oh,
then
yeah.
Other people said Phantom Zone, and then Russell Crowe said Phantom Zone, and just, tears.
Russell Crowe saying Kal-El is one of the things that, like, it was almost surreal to see. It's like, you're a gladiator, and now you're saying a comic book term.
I gotta say, Russell Crowe, though, I really thought he did a great job in his role.
Yeah, he was a good Jor-El. I really liked him.
Although I can't say the same for whoever was. I should look her name up. Whoever played Jor-El's wife.
Laura?
Is that actually her name? Just Laura?
Yeah, I always thought that was very lazy.
I didn't have a problem with her. I just felt like there wasn't much of her.
I feel like she just, I don't know, there was something about her performance that just wasn't bringing me in on it.
You were glad she was destroyed with Krypton.
That old teacher. I kind of feel like it was almost like they wanted to get someone that was very similar to Lena Headey, but not. From Cersei from...
Yeah, 300.
Yeah, 300 Game of Thrones and all that. Like, I feel like she could have really nailed that role, but it's such a small part when it made sense to get her.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder has his Lena Headey lookalikes.
That's kind of what I got from it. Like, it was, close enough.
He has a closet full of them. He's been cloning her for years, trying to make the superior Lena Headey.
Zack Snyder actually is Lex Luthor. That's why he wasn't in this movie. He even went an insulting depiction of himself.
Speaking of Lex Luthor, I can't tell you how moved I was whenever we went to the end credits, and after the standing ovation and applause, over 50% of the audience stayed until the very end because they knew that there was an after-credit scene coming. And then the ushers came into the theater and told us there was no after-credit scene.
Oh, good. I thought I missed it for a minute.
Yeah, I was kind of worrying.
Like, there wasn't any doubt in their minds. They're like, oh, we have to sit here for the after-credit scene.
Well, if they're smart, they would have done something.
That's how well Marvel has people trained.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's what a lot of criticisms towards this film barrels down to, in that people expect a Marvel movie for every superhero movie, except for Batman. Like, they want it to have like a certain level of this or that, or essentially they just want a movie that's structured like a Marvel movie, and this wasn't, and that might have been what turned people off. I don't know.
Even more than the structure, I think a lot of it has come down to the tone. Like, a majority, if not all of the Marvel movies have a lot of fun to them. Yeah. Like, they're fun superhero movies.
Like, they're not
even
dramas.
Even if they get heavy at moments, there's going to be a moment that's a lot lighter to kind of balance that out. Whereas Dark Knight, Man of Steel, they've kind of got a darker, heavier presence to them. I'm not saying they can't be light or fun at times, but the tone is very different.
Yeah, Man of Steel is still a very fun movie, and I wouldn't say it's any more darker than most summer blockbusters.
It's definitely not darker than The Dark Knight. Like,
it's not darker than Superman Returns.
Actually, that's true. I didn't think of that. But it's like, you don't really have
Superman Returns also revolves around the plot where Superman leaves his baby mama for, like, years without saying goodbye. And he's a deadbeat dad, and then comes back to Earth, and he's bummed out and depressed because life sucks everywhere. Also, his home planet and everyone he ever loved was dead.
Somewhere I just feel
got Lex Luthor fucking things up.
Yep.
Somewhere I just feel Mike getting enraged. But, no, like, going back to the actual movie, like, I had my issues with it, but tone was not one of them. Like, I was insanely worried going in that this would do something to where it would be a betrayal of what Superman is about, which is being about more of a positive force. Mm-hmm. And, like, not to the level of the Donner films. Like, that's the misconception that people have about Superman. He's not Christopher Reeve. Like, he's not Christopher Reeve in the comics. He's not Christopher Reeve in the animated series. He's not, like, that's not the only interpretation of the character.
Yeah, I would say that was very much the Kurt Swan era Superman, but that Superman's been put up in the attic for a very long time.
Yeah,
it's like wanting Adam West Batman. Like, that was Batman for a while, but he's evolved since then.
Yeah,
I think Cavill did a great job. The script didn't really do him a ton of favors. Like, I feel like they shortchanged him a little bit to make him more of a strong silent type.
Well, I did kind of have a problem with most of the first act, him not saying anything.
I kind of understand for his character in the film, though, the way they have him set up as an outsider all around.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that, but I felt like they could have added like a little dialogue here and there because he was very good in the movie.
It seems to always be the problem with Superman, like in Superman Returns, even to a certain extent in Superman the movie, where he didn't, if I remember correctly, he didn't have a ton to say. I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when that pre-Superman phase of him, like he doesn't really have much to do.
Yeah, well, I think not having Clark Kent be in the movie so much, especially newspaper reporter Clark Kent, eliminates on his chances to kind of have more lines and interactions with regular people where he's not flying around trying to save the world.
Yeah. Though I did love that sequence where he's working at the bar and, he gets antagonized and he has to keep himself from lashing out and using his powers on that dude.
How did you feel about him destroying that dude's semi? I know some people that really complain, like, Superman would never do something that petty.
That was the biggest laugh we got in the theaters. Like, I laughed along with it. It was great.
Also, I felt that had a point to it. That was Superman before, while he's still learning to restrain himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another, I guess we should probably go ahead and go into one of our biggest issues with the film, or mine at least. It seemed as though the entire movie was about Superman's restraint, which, as I was watching it for the first time, I really appreciated because that's a part of the character that goes over a lot of people's heads.
Yeah.
Like he has to always try not to just squish everyone. Like he gives a firm handshake, but not firm enough to splinter their forearm. Like he's always got to be in control. It's tough.
Like there was actually a really understated moment in the film that kind of played to that, where he just comes home for the first time after a number of years, and he's greeting Martha Kent, and there's like a hesitance when he embraces her, because I guess like he's afraid of breaking her in half almost. But then it's like he immediately just goes into it and everything's fine. But I thought that was like a little nice touch.
Yeah, I feel as though every major character has like the one thing that defines him. Like Spider-Man is all about responsibility, Batman is always about will, and Superman is always about restraint. And all the great stories have that, that main bullet point. It's all the great Superman stories are like Kingdom Come are about his restraint.
Yeah, about him not going over the line. Like him always maintaining the line and never letting go of his moral value.
That's always my biggest issue when people say, well, Superman's too powerful. He's a god. He can do anything. That's the point of the character, is that he could solve any of his problems instantly. The fact is, the thing that makes him interesting is that he does have that code and he does restrain himself.
Yeah, and he is someone who is raised on Earth, so he's as much a human as everybody else, in that he was taught with our values, our understanding of how the world works around him, and really what makes us tick is everything that makes him tick as well, except for the physical limitations.
And the question in every great Batman story is, will Bruce Wayne's willpower win out over everything else? And in every great Superman story, the question is, will Superman choose to live as a god or as a man?
Yeah.
Which, up until the ending, they do a pretty good job of establishing, but once we get to Superman snapping Zod's neck like a rotten twig, I just felt like the entire movie was building to the exact opposite of that. That's one of the reasons it was so shocking to me in the theaters.
Well, before I go to my thoughts on it, Flexo, how'd you feel about that part?
I was a little conflicted for the fact that it's always very odd to see Superman murder people. But I think they handled it in a tactful way where Superman obviously doesn't want to do it, and he's obviously very upset that he had to do it. And I think that goes along with that constraint. Like he could have, if he snapped his neck there, he could have done it at an earlier point. I wish there had been a moment where he tried to convince Zod a little bit more thoroughly that he didn't have to destroy all of humanity. Like, well, all the Kryptons are gone, but you could still be the savior for the human race.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even try anything like that. Doesn't try and reason with Zod or talk to him. He just starts going back to punching him. So I kind of wish that they'd explored a little bit more Superman trying to be reasonable with him or trying to exercise that constraint as long as possible. And there's one really bad line of dialogue where I think they were trying to do that in retrospect. Okay, so Zod and Superman are having their fight, and Zod pauses. He's like, "This only ends with you killing me or me killing you," and then they start punching each other again. And I was really confused why they had to stop in the middle of the fight for Zod to say something that obvious, considering they're just trying to punch each other through all the buildings in Metropolis.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, actually.
Like, the line is really clunky, but looking back at it, maybe Zod was trying to say, like, hey, you've either got to get rid of your restraints and kill me, or I'm just going to kill you if you can't bring yourself to do it.
Yeah, there are a lot of weird moments sprinkled throughout the movie like that, but to be fair, that's more of a summer blockbuster thing than a problem with this specific movie.
I feel like it's something Goyer brings to a lot of his projects. Like, think back to Batman Begins with all the, like, weird little one-liners, like, nice coat. Yeah, there's just weird stuff that he kind of throws in there that doesn't always fit the moment the best.
I don't know, with Batman Begins, like, nice coat is really the only, like, one of the only ones I can think of. Like, I think that Nolan did a pretty good service in that he rewrote a lot of stuff from the original draft, so, like, not a ton, but he added little things here and there that fit better than what Goyer originally wrote, so...
Yeah. All I know is in Man of Steel, there were certain spots every once in a while where the dialogue would just be terrible.
I don't know, I didn't really have that problem, other than the horrible early 90s Keanu Reeves movie exchange between Superman and Lois after they kiss.
Yeah, that line really didn't work for me. It was something to the effect of, you know, it always goes downhill after the first kiss, and he says, I'm positive that only counts for humans or something like that.
And the whole time I'm thinking, people are dying right now.
Yeah, like I didn't mind the kiss itself because I felt like the movie built up to that with their interactions, but
it was the kiss and then the pause that felt in the wrong place.
Yeah, the whole comedic moment, like stick to the drum. Like that was the part that they should have stuck to the drama with, I think.
Yeah, and I guess going off of bad lines, anytime they're trying to explain how Superman's powers work, like a lot of the technobabble that gets thrown in for this stuff is just it kind of smacks of like the water evaporator from Batman Begins in a way.
I don't know. I rarely mind stuff like that.
I mean, I can put it past me when I'm watching a movie just for the fact that whatever, they have to explain it somehow.
And especially since it's a comic book movie. You expect a certain amount of comic book science in a story like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really bothered by that, but before we get too far off of it, I do want to go back to the Zod killing thing because I do kind of want to add my reaction to it, which was, yeah, it was unnecessary, and they could have... Okay, my first reaction to it was that they could have figured out a way to bypass that because I felt like Superman could have flown Zod out of the building instead of just holding him there in like a cradle or whatever. Like, I felt like he could have just like picked him up and they could have flown through the roof and he could have figured out some other way to dispatch him rather than just, you know, being... Like, the movie plays it like a big dramatic beat, and I understand why. And to a degree, I felt like it worked because it was a really powerful moment when he, like, after he actually snaps his neck and, you know, realizes what he's done and just screams and...
But it just seems so abrupt that Zod decides, like, oh, this is the moment where I'm going to, you know, start firing my lasers at random civilians just to piss Superman off into killing me.
I know.
It feels like there should need to be like a beat or two more to back that up, or maybe him repeatedly trying to murder people until Superman couldn't take it anymore.
I don't know. I feel like he already did that at that point. Like, that was...
We had the moment where he said he was going to kill everyone on Earth, but then he goes back to punching Superman, and then he happens to see those people in the train station or wherever they're at, and tries to kill them and basically says, I will never stop. And I almost feel like that was too sudden of a thing. Like, maybe if they'd just shown a little bit more that he was repeatedly trying to murder every single person he saw just to piss Soups off.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really bother me, but I can kind of see your point. But as far as the murder itself goes, like, when the question boils down to whether or not I can forgive it, I can, and here's the reason. We just came off of a Batman series that had Batman remorselessly killing people left and right and not even acknowledging it for even 1 second. Like, in Batman Begins, he leaves Ra's al Ghul to die in the train. In The Dark Knight, also in Batman Begins, he blew up the entire monastery full of people.
And including that guy he refused to kill.
Yep, and ran over a bunch of cars with his tank.
Yeah.
He killed cops.
Yeah, pretty much.
No more dead cops.
They're talking about Batman.
And then in The Dark Knight, he tackles Two-Face off of the side of the building. And he breaks his neck on the fall down. And then in the Dark Knight Rises, he lets Catwoman murder Bane and doesn't say anything about it. So it's like...
Oh, it's okay if she does it. That's no big deal.
My thing...
Anne Hathaway, she does what she pleases.
Well, my thing with it is that it's like... I'd rather Superman kill and then be remorseful about it than him take the Batman route and kill and not acknowledge it in any way. Like I felt like it was a very in-character murder, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I'm very glad it was at least not a Transformers killing.
Yeah.
Like he snaps his neck. Yeah, take that, bitch. School's out.
Yeah, like
terrible Green Day song plays.
Like that's very much how you would see Superman reacting if he was pushed to that level, and he has actually been pushed to that level a couple of times in the comics. Like not even. Like, people keep passing around that whole Phantom Zone picture. Like, that's a terrible example, but he has, like, been pushed past the brink a couple of times in the comics. It's not like Batman where every single time he's nearly murdered someone, people have a reference for it. It's like, it's been sprinkled throughout the entire Superman mythos that sometimes, like, he has to learn from his experiences, and he has to learn, like, to restrain himself even more because he goes a little bit too far.
Or even like in the animated series, I was just watching this as a refresher a couple nights ago, and there was an episode with Bizarro where he's trying to recreate Krypton. Superman stops him, and then he doesn't know what to do with Bizarro, so he abandons him on an alien planet with one alien dog. They're the only things on the planet, just those two. And Superman's like, well, good enough, that'll work. So I feel like
Bizarro
Superman
becomes Khan.
Yeah, I feel like Superman does have a little bit of like a mean streak. Like he's trying to get the best solution for everyone, but if that doesn't work, well, majority rule.
Make Jimmy Olsen marry a horse.
But yeah, just to clarify, like, I definitely think there could have been another way to do it other than snapping Zod's neck. But personally, I'm not a Mark Waid about it. Like, I don't have the Mark Waid reaction where I was taken out of the movie by that. It's like, I just suffered through an entire series of Batman doing this without remorse. I'll take this.
The next snap to me was, I could take it. Just for the fact that Superman had remorse. That was a big thing. Plus, his Superman kind of, beginning. So it feels like a rookie mistake. Maybe we'll go with that. But the thing that really bothered me was, this is probably just a huge nitpick, the solution for the Kryptonian bomb thing in the plane, where all the scientists had to do was turn it a little bit and then push the Superman logo in. And the fact that no one could figure this out.
They needed to bring Professor Hamilton in to solve that.
Like, I really feel like it would have been great if they just kamikaze the plane right in there and then it went off. Like, they didn't even need to, like, do the turn or anything like that, or the drop the bomb in general.
Yeah.
And again, that was another movie thing.
Where it's like,
it sucks that's in there, but
it'll only work when it's dramatically convenient.
That scene would have worked out if Aerosmith had been playing when they crashed the bomb in.
Don't want to close my eyes.
Well, I don't want to miss
a thing 'cause I love you, babe.
Speaking of that whole plot line, was I the only one secretly hoping that they would reveal at the end that Christopher Maloney was Lois Lane's dad, and he was just that much of a dick to her?
That would have been fantastic.
He still kills himself.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of interesting side characters, but almost that they were being set up for the next movie. Like Perry White, he gets plenty of moments, but they don't really feel that important. So it's just kind of like, oh, well, when we get to the next movie, you'll at least know who this guy is. Along with, was it Jenna instead of...
Yeah, it was Jenny.
Jenna Olsen? Oh, Jenny Olsen.
Well, actually, the producer later came out and said she's just a character. She's not meant to be a stand-in for Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, well, that's good then.
So I guess, push comes to shove, they will introduce Jimmy eventually.
Yeah.
Though, to be honest,
played by Michael Cera.
To be honest, I never minded the idea of like a female Jimmy Olsen.
That would have been fine.
Yeah, I would have been cool with it. I don't really care about Jimmy all that much, so.
But okay, one of my biggest complaints about the movie. Okay, one of the biggest things I had, and I had a couple issues in terms of the plot itself, but one of the biggest complaints I had about it was, at one point, Superman goes to check on his mother after Zod has attacked him, and they have this embrace in the the front door of the Kent house. And it was a nice little scene where she remarks on his suit and all that, and then Lois Lane pulls up with two cops present in the background, shouting "Clark, Clark," while Superman is standing in the doorway of the Kent house.
I didn't like that scene for a different reason, but I agree that it's kind of dumb.
It's okay. Superman killed those two cops later.
Yeah, no witnesses, Lois.
Well, as we can see, everyone in Smallville knows who Superman is.
But no, I was just thinking, like, that moment she runs up, Superman, I know how to stop them! Which is weird, because she just had a scene with him, like, 2 minutes ago, where she didn't mention this.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Like, I feel like it was just kind of like a clunky, like, oh, crap, we forgot to mention that she knows how to destroy the bomb. Fuck it, just put it in here.
Yeah, my thing was like, sacred identity, man.
Yeah.
Like, I get that, like, I like the idea that she figured it out before he was even Superman, really. Mm-hmm. Like, I like the little change to the mythos, even though it is a pretty big departure. But
I thought it was fine.
She did a really terrible job of covering stuff up. Like, the fact that the public knows that she knows his real name kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because that paints an even bigger target on her back than even in the comics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that scene aside, like, I really enjoyed Lois Lane in the movie, at least. So
yeah, Amy Adams was amazing as Lois Lane. I was not expecting for her to be in the movie that much, from what I've read of reviews, because everyone was complaining about how Amy Adams was wasted in the movie and Lois had nothing to do. Lois is a very big part of the movie.
Yeah.
And is the most Lois Lane I've ever seen of any big screen Lois.
And she drinks like a man. But, yeah, that was probably... I mean, I had a couple of others, but I'll let you guys go ahead. And
the baton has been passed. Yeah. Like
don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it.
A good death is his own reward.
Fire! I burned down the podcast somehow.
Oh, jeez.
I hope I sent off that insurance check.
Superman comes in, snaps your neck.
No witnesses.
Starts crying into MB's chest.
That's the one you don't regret.
Like, I can just really imagine the end of the movie being Zod just fighting Superman while puking violently because of sensory overload. That was like the image I had. Like, he's just climbing up that building. I can see everything.
I'm Daredevil now.
Anyways.
Yeah, you got a point to make.
Follow that up.
I don't.
But I really was enjoying the movie, like, almost as much as I had enjoyed the Avengers up until the final fight with Zod. The way I described it was, and this is sort of how I think about the movie now, Man of Steel is like a really intelligent, funny, kind, amazing girlfriend who cheated on you once.
But just
and you forgive. Yeah, and you forgive her for it, and it was a long time ago, and
it's still in the back
the
of your
pluses
mind.
outweigh the pluses outweigh the negatives, but sometimes you look at her and you just think,
that dude played guitar and he painted and wrote poetry.
Yeah,
it just makes sense.
Like, I love Man of Steel, but I can. Even with the way it's handled, I'll say it's handled about as well as that kind of thing could be handled. That scene should never have happened. Ever. Ever. It doesn't ruin the movie for me, but outside of the movie, it kind of depresses me to think that we're at a place in our culture where Superman killing somebody is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I was shell-shocked for like 2 days afterwards, just thinking to myself, there now exists a Superman movie where Superman kills somebody.
Yeah. I guess on that level, it's definitely a downer.
Like, I never thought I would feel a sting of moral outrage at a Superman movie.
I kind of look at it like you have to feel it's, just like any other Elseworlds tale.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't it's handled in a way so that you don't hate Superman afterwards.
Yeah, same with him, stealing the clothes out of that truck. He had to do it.
Yeah, I would say if I had never heard of Superman before and knew nothing about him, and my exposure to the character had just been this movie, that wouldn't be a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I would think it would be kind of odd tonally from what the rest of the movie had established. Because it really seemed like they were building towards, Superman showing mercy on Zod and showing restraint, which was the original ending of the movie until Zack Snyder came in and decided, Snyder and Goyer decided that him killing Zod would be more appropriate.
Oddly enough, one of the people who didn't like the idea of Superman killing Zod was Christopher Nolan. Like, I did not expect that.
I know, I love Christopher Nolan, but I was still expecting him, to appear in an interview with a long-winded, pretentious explanation of why Superman had to kill this man.
What? Is Christopher Nolan German?
I don't know. I was trying to do Welsh, and then it just came out as French, German, waltz.
We're gonna get you to Babelfish that and say it in German.
Steven Solo. Hold on.
I hear computing happening.
Oh, God.
There was a bug on my keyboard, sorry.
Oh, that wasn't computing at all then.
It was a type of computing.
That was smashing.
But that does... I would say it's a testament to how much the movie gets right when something that would absolutely ruin any Superman movie for me is something I can now forgive.
Yeah. It's
not forgive, but something I can overlook.
Yeah, I think that's actually the best way to put it, in that it's something is so not Superman in the way you want him to be. Like, he's, without a doubt, if you make the perfect Superman movie, he would never kill in that movie.
And up until then, it seems like the most Superman movie you've ever seen. Like, finally, there's a movie that gets Superman.
And, to be honest, like, even after that, I still feel that way, that it is. But that one moment, it's like, that is sort of a moment where you step back and you're like, all right, I'm going to have to process this for a minute.
After the way Hero phrased that, I can relate just by thinking of the Hellboy movie, the first one. There's a moment where Rasputin shows Professor Broom the Ragnarok, and it looks shitty. Like, the whole world's on fire, and Hellboy's like, well, I guess I did that. And it's kind of like, no, there's more to that scene. You stopped early. Rasputin's supposed to be, look, everything's shitty. Oh, but wait, there's a new Eden coming from the ashes. See, I'm a good guy after all. Like, Rasputin as a character needs that motivation, and for them not to give it to him just makes him look like an asshole, which kind of betrays the whole source material. But I love that movie so much I can get past it, even though it drives me crazy every time I watch Hellboy.
Well,
not like the My Chemical Romance song at the end of Watchmen.
Oh, God.
You have to imply just enough cognitive dissonance to, like, separate the fatal flaw from the movie you love.
When I watch Watchmen, I keep the remote in my hand, so the moment the film ends, I can stop it quick.
Or, like, at least
put
it
on
on
Bob
mute.
Dylan Desolation Row.
Like,
gotta have the mute button ready. I just can't take it.
Yeah. It's
I just skip immediately to Tonight We Take Manhattan.
But yeah, it's like, not to bring up this analogy constantly, but it's, to be fair, it's fairly easy to do because Nolan was involved with this movie. Like, the Batman movies, there's no argument that could be made that will ever convince me Batman didn't kill the people he killed in the Nolan movies.
Well, they fell down an elevator shaft into some bullets.
I would still make the argument that Batman did not murder Harvey Dent. It just sort of happened.
We're not getting into this now.
Yeah, but what about one of your points, Flexo?
I think instead of going with complaints about the movie, because I've already given out quite a few, I want to switch up tracks a little bit and talk about reasons why people should see the movie, or stuff that they'd really enjoy if they saw the movie. And one of them for me is actually Zod's henchmen. A lot of them were not named, but Faora, like, damn, I thought they did a really interesting job with, like, a fairly minor character.
I wanted so much more of Faora.
Yes.
She was almost better than Zod.
Like, she was great in every scene she was in. Like, I wanted to see her just being crazy and,
like, if you compare this movie to Superman 2, it's like, Faora is way better than Ursa.
Oh, yeah, hands down. Hands down. She was awesome.
Yeah,
now, if they had combined the two and Faora kept collecting badges from people, it would have been perfect.
I mean, I feel like Faora could have been, like, she was worthy of being a Superman villain all her own.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that would be a really interesting character to bring in the comics. Like, bring back, I mean.
Yeah, so I thought she was great. Zod himself, I thought they did a great job because they really portrayed him as a guy who's trying to do his best for his people. From his point of view, he's clearly not the villain. He is trying to save his people. And, you know, if you look at the movie from a little bit of a skew, you realize Superman's actually the bad guy this time. Like, he just wiped out his entire race of people. It was a genocide. It was horrible.
All for Amy Adams.
All for Amy Adams. That's right.
Which any of us would do, let's be honest.
He was really enthralled with Enchanted.
She was in the Muppets.
We all know she was in the Muppets.
Oh, I love the Muppets.
We all do. Let's watch the Muppets.
Oh, yeah, can we?
Later.
I was actually really fascinated.
I like MB Dad. Later. We'll watch the Muppets later. Go to bed. Sorry, interrupt.
But I really like the idea of Zod being a victim of Krypton as much as he was a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at one point he even says, like, I'm a victim of the caste system. I exist only to fight and to kill. That's what I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to protect Krypton, and this is the extension of that job.
It felt for the first time that a character like Zod was given depth. Because, like, Terrence Stamp, like, I love Terrence Stamp as Zod, but he's very much the conniving supervillain. Like, he really has nothing else to him other than he is evil for the sake of it. He is evil because that's just his existence as a character. Like, there's no long and short of it. There's no extension beyond that, really. But with Shannon Zod, it's like, no, he has actual motivations, and he has actual, you know, achievements and goals, and he has an actual reason to be a character compared to, like, even the comic book Zod, which is like, there was never really a reason for Zod to exist in the comics beyond
There's
Terrence
like 20 Zods anyway.
Yeah.
And none of them
knockoffs.
are anything like Terrence Stamp.
I will say, in the animated series, their version of Zod is voiced by Ron Perlman.
That was pretty awesome.
That was Jack Sear, though.
So. Oh, close enough. In the animated series, they use basically Zod.
Zod with an eye patch, which is
even better.
But yeah, especially whenever you find out what Krypton is all about, like, you're kind of on his side for a minute. Like, yeah, it probably is a good idea to stage a coup. This is a horrible planet.
Yeah, like, everyone is kind of bred with a specific task in mind. Like, Jor-El, like, it's implied that Jor-El is basically just made so that he could be a scientist. And that's really the reason he stays behind on Krypton rather than go with Kal-El, is because he knows he's imperfect. You know, he knows he's been scientifically bred for one specific purpose, and he'll never have a chance at being his own person, which is what he wants for his son. So I thought that was a really nice touch to the mythos.
Yeah, it's a fascinating part that nobody ever, at least from what I've seen, nobody touches on. Like, the idea that Jor-El and Laura don't go with Clark because there's not because there's not enough room on the spaceship or because of some complicated science fiction explanation. They go because they don't feel as though they deserve to go. Like, they are Krypton, and Krypton is doomed to die one way or the other.
It was a really good touch. Like, I feel like the film did add some really interesting elements to the Superman mythos, and that was definitely probably the biggest to me.
Yeah, it'll be kind of exciting to see if they end up including any of this into the actual comic book canon.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, anything's better than New 52 Superman.
Ooh, 52
With his collar. How is it that Henry Cavill Superman snaps a guy's neck and New 52 Superman is still more of a dick?
That's amazingly accurate, actually.
With his armor and his collar and his belt with pouches.
And him making out with Wonder Woman.
We all know that's Steve Trevor's girl.
Did anyone find it hilarious that Cavill's Superman had chest hair peeking over the top of his suit?
I did not notice that.
No, I didn't notice that either.
Maybe he shaved at a certain point, but there was one moment, like when he was learning to fly, where you can clearly tell he's got chest hair, like, peeking out of the top.
So that's why that Gillette commercial exists.
I'm surprised I didn't notice that, because I was paying very close attention to that man.
Okay.
So were you. Henry Cavill is made out of desert rock.
Yeah, probably. But going to something that I really liked about the movie was really the guy himself, like Henry Cavill as Superman. Like I went in not really knowing what to expect out of him, but what
I'm like one of the big fans of Immortals out there, so I was already excited for him to be in it.
What I didn't expect with it, though, with his role in it, was that he had like a confidence when he put on the suit. Like
Which is funny because they were talking about him not having confidence during the big end fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see your point. I definitely agree
he
with it.
spoke with like a certain level of authority that you expect out of Superman. Like, this is a Superman you could see leading the Justice League.
Yeah. Yes, and he had a friendliness and a gentility to him.
Yeah.
That he was able to pull off without smiling and winking.
Yeah, like he didn't have to...
Which again is what Superman, the comics, and the animated series has.
Yeah, I mean, he was completely that version of Superman. Like, he portrayed that version of the role just as well as Bale portrayed, the post-crisis version of Batman, in my opinion. I mean, say what you will about the voice, of course, but that's neither here nor there.
Especially in that last scene where he brings down the satellite, and he's just standing there with his arms crossed, like, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's like when he says that, inside you're thinking, yeah, they should probably go with what he says. Like, not because he could kill them, but because, yeah, that's Superman. You should listen to him. Yeah. Like, he has that sense of non-threatening authority to him.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just Cavill's presence and the way he has his voice. Like just basically everything, even his posture is like, the dude made a really good Superman. I'm really glad. I mean, he was really well cast. I'm glad they went with him.
He may be my favorite live-action Superman. I mean, as brilliant as Reeve was.
Ooh, bad-mouthing the dead guy. What a dick.
It's kind of like how I felt with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Like, as much as I loved Edward Norton, Ruffalo just was the comic book Bruce Banner, like, to a T. That's kind of how I feel about Henry Cavill. Like, he is post-crisis Superman, the same way Christopher Reeve was Silver Age Superman.
Yeah.
And Brandon Routh is unemployed.
Oh, that's...
I know.
That was a low.
It's incredibly low. Everyone says he's just a charming, great guy.
Yeah, he wasn't Scott Pilgrim.
He wasn't Scott Pilgrim.
Brandon Routh is the most underrated actor in Hollywood.
I do feel bad for him.
He believed in Dylan Dog, Dead of Night.
Oh, that was too bad. I tried watching that movie.
Yeah, well, they got screwed over, so...
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, I really enjoyed the entire cast, even... Though, one cast member I felt was really wasted was Kevin Costner.
I think he did all right with what he had.
He did good with what he had. It's just that what he had was just...
well, they needed Pa Kent to set up that conflict between Superman of, having restraints or just showing himself to the whole world, and it made him basically out to be a dick.
Kind of.
I don't know. Maybe you should have killed those kids in the bus.
I don't know. I kind of thought that was an interesting take on that whole relationship.
I thought it was an interesting take on Pa Kent. I just meant more like every line of dialogue he has is just basically him telling him to be Superman.
But not yet.
Not yet. Like, when the time is right, you're going to be Superman, but not now.
Yeah, like, I thought it was an interesting touch, too, where they removed the heart attack plot and just had him crushed by a tornado.
You got to see action Pa Kent.
So, I mean... I'm not sure how I feel about it, because it does work in the context of the film, but it also feels very odd where he'd be like, nope, hold there, can't just watch me die. Like, that is some commitment to your ideals right there.
Yeah, that was...
I will force my son to watch me die in a natural disaster just to prove a point.
And he listens to him. That felt kind of odd to me. that he would just stand there and let him just destroyed. Even if he did like raise up the hand, it was like tornado's coming right for you, dude. Like overall, I would say the cast did a very good job.
Yeah, definitely agree on that.
So,
the frogs are telling us to wrap up the podcast.
Finish. God, they're trying to break down the walls.
Finish it.
One last thing I want to throw out there. I don't know if you guys saw the movie in 3D. I did. I would not recommend it. There's a couple cool moments in 3D, but by and large, it seems like a film that's served perfectly well by 2D.
I saw it in 2D, so yeah, definitely go see that.
It was cool, like at the end when the building is collapsing and Perry is running from the building. To see that in 3D and get the sense that the building's actually coming towards them, it does a great job for the scope. And the same on Krypton, where you have, Jor-El jumping all over the place off buildings and all that. There's a couple of spots where you do really get a good sense of scale, but other than that, the 3D just wasn't worth the extra money, so steer clear.
By the way, I just want to make mention of that. It seems like both of Superman's dads in this movie get action moments. Like, Jor-El literally gets a fist fight with Zod, which I felt was a little much, but...
I thought it was cool, although it did seem weird that Jor-El was able to beat the shit out of Zod.
Well, it's Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
It was in his contract.
Look, he was master and commander.
On the far side of the world.
I wish he had said that as he gotten stabbed. But I'm the gladiator.
I am Jor-El, father of a slain son.
I will have my vengeance.
Cinderella Man.
I'm just saying movie titles. I wasn't the man with the iron fist, but I was in that movie.
As Kevin Costner swallowed up by the tornado, he just sails, Waterworld!
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves!
Michael Shannon steps in. Premium Rush!
Take shelter!
The Iceman!
Judge Dredd!
Anybody seen Boardwalk Empire? Boardwalk Empire. No?
I was the narrator of TNT.
Right,
yeah, well, this seems like it's running out of steam. Yeah. All right, time to wrap things up. All right, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more of them at boxofficepulp.blogspot. We're also on iTunes. We're on Facebook. You could probably send smoke signals, and we'll contact you and have a nice little chat. Whatever.
Look, if you light our symbol on the side of a bridge, we'll probably see it.
It's true.
Impossible.
Impossible, but nice. Hero, you can find more of him on his own podcast, Below the Bible Belt. Hey. And MB's in several podcasts. I'll let him break them down so I don't forget any.
Break it down, MB.
Okay, if I can actually get to my plugs now.
No, we're done.
I have the
podcast is over.
I have the Off-Panel Podcast, which is a comic book show where Tincture Iron Ink is fresh and blah, 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 blah. I had the Dork Knights, which hasn't had an episode up in a while. We're working on that.
I'm surprised you guys don't have a Superman episode in the works.
And we also have Pulp Nightmare, which I do with our usual co-host, Mike Napier, along with Hero occasionally.
He hasn't seen Superman. Everyone laughing Mike.
Laughing at him through the internet.
He'll hate it.
Poor son of a bitch.
Anyway.
Is that it? We hit everything?
I think so.
Like so, you don't have any other podcasts you've been recording without our permission, have you?
I have one in mind, but I haven't started doing it yet because it's too insane to even mention. So with that, that's a wrap, everybody. Enjoy your night. Goodbye.
And like that, he's gone.
I will find him.
I will find him.
Fine.
I will find him.
I will find him?
I will find him.
Find him
I will find
the stars.
I will find Jor-El.